Hi everyone, Olivia Reiner here for Packers News, joined by Tom Silverstein. And it is Wednesday, we are back at practice, back in the swing of things. It feels like after the bye week passed, we came back on Monday, there was practice, but I felt a little lethargic getting back into it. It seemed like the players bolted right when locker room opened up, so there really wasn't a lot of people around. So it feels like today is really the first day back after the bye week.
It is. I think Monday was just a reinitiation to get their legs used to doing, getting warmed up, and probably got introduced a little bit to what the game plan was going to be. But then, they're such creatures of routine that they got back on Wednesday and it's been a normal day.
Yeah, a lot of work leading up to the game on Sunday night against the San Francisco 49ers. In San Francisco, a much warmer climate. Looking forward to it. When you were just out there.
Yes, I was, and now I'm going back out again. So it was beautiful when I was out there. We'll see I think it's supposed to be pretty nice this weekend, too.
Anything could be nicer.
Yeah, they'll have a couple of cold December games to punish them later. But for right now, that's two California games. I can't complain about that.
That being said, it's not too bad today. It could be a whole lot worse.
No, it could be a lot worse. And I'm sure they worked outside today. And it's supposed to be even warmer tomorrow, I think. So, really, they just, they need to do what they do in the same climate, same thing that they normally do, and don't try to do something completely different out of the norm. There's no need to do that. And so I think they'll be more than prepared, especially going out on a Saturday instead of Friday.
Yes, not a Friday. Speaking of things not out of the norm, not changing up the travel schedule, as we mentioned on Monday. Matt LaFleur made the decision that the team is going to travel on Saturday instead of Friday like they did in LA against the Chargers. So it's not going to be as unusual of a travel schedule for the Packers. Simply because the 2-hour time difference, Matt LaFleur said on Monday, doesn't make that much of a difference.
Yeah, and I never really understood why he left on Friday for the Chargers game. They've always done it, left Saturday. It's the hardest part is coming back, is Sunday after the game, and then losing 2 hours and getting back at 4 a.m. So I think he learned his lesson. I doubt he'll be doing that. The only time you do that is if, you're probably going like West Coast to East Coast or East Coast to West Coast. That's generally the only time. Or maybe if you're going to Denver where they're above sea level and you need to get accustomed to the air. That's about it.
All right. Well, guys, we are always, as usual, we are on Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube. So hello, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. I will be taking a look on my phone at the Facebook chat. So I see a lot of you guys are in there now. Paul says hello. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Paul.
Ryan wants to see if we can get Leroy on the show. Do you think he would ever want to join us?
We'll have to catch him when he's giving one of the tours around here.
That
would be fun if we could get him up here. I'll work on that.
Ooh, that would be special. Okay, I'd love to have him on our little show that we do here. Let's see. So I guess before we jump into some of these questions, because you guys have a few of them, let's talk about who practiced, who didn't practice today. We do not yet have the injury report, but just based off of who did not practice today, I think we can speculate what
why don't we have
injuries
the
are yet.
No. That's kind of odd.
Late.
It's pretty late.
Who knows?
What are they trying to... I know what this is. They're trying to put it out late because the 49ers put theirs out late because they're on the West Coast.
All right. Well, the 2
what
hours
I say
there.
To that. Come on.
Well,
whatever.
Maybe we'll get an email as we're on the air. But anyway, injuries. We don't know exactly what the limitations were for guys in practice today, but during the portion of practice where media were allowed into practice, we did not see Tramon Williams or Jimmy Graham practice. They were on the bikes, on the ellipticals. My guess...
And not because of injury.
My guess is it's a veteran rest.
Yeah, that's been typical. He's done that every week. Last week, Mercedes Lewis took Wednesday off. This week, he's given Graham and Williams, and they'll be limited through the week. It's a smart thing. He does the same thing with Balaga.
Sure. So those were the only two guys that we noticed were not stretching during that stretch period. Also worth noting, Ty Summers and Tremont Smith, they returned to practice on Monday. They were in the concussion protocol after leaving the game against the Panthers early. So I actually don't think, as of Monday, I think they were still in concussion protocol, and I'm assuming they're still in it.
Yeah, we'll know if they practice in pads tomorrow. They probably are out of it. I would guess they're probably close, or if not out of it, I don't know.
All right, so there's a couple of updates for you guys there. Fortunately, like I said, no injury report, but if for whatever reason I get the email on my phone, we'll take a moment and we'll take a look at it. So let's get to some of your questions. Let's see what we got. A couple of you guys asking about George Kittle play and what the plan for him is. Eric wants to know, how do they plan for him? Tight ends have killed us this year. The Packers have had some struggles. I think of the Eagles game. I think of Zach Ertz. I think of Kansas City and Travis Kelce. These guys are tough. They're athletic. I mean, using the word athletic in this league is kind of a goofy thing because they're all athletes, but they're these big playmaking bodies.
But for his size, he's extremely athletic.
Yeah, so you think of those games and the struggles that the Packers defense had with those guys and the yardage that they gave up against some of those tight ends. How do they stop from repeating that history with George Kittle?
Well, you double team him, and you use, more than likely they'll play Ibrahim Campbell quite a bit in the middle and at middle linebacker, and try to cover him with them, and then you put a safety over the top. You take him out of the game because there's not a lot of guys there that can absolutely kill you. Emmanuel Sanders, still a really good player, but boy, he banged up in this last game. Every time he caught a ball or took a hit, he had to leave the game because his ribs were hurting so badly. They have some other guys, Deebo Samuel, I think he's banged up a little bit. If I'm in that situation, I would do everything I could to take away George Kittle. And that's assuming he plays. We still don't even know if he's going to play yet. I'm assuming he is, but he's been out the last 2 games with knee and ankle injuries.
Yeah, and he didn't practice today. So as we mentioned earlier, we do not yet have the injury report from the 49ers, but he did not practice today. He didn't practice the other day as well on Monday. So that's
not a good sign.
That's kind of some red flags, and there's a whole list. I wish I should find it on my phone, but there's a whole bunch of guys on the 49ers.
Are beat
D Ford is also out.
He probably won't play. They just put Ronald Blair on, one of their other pass rushers, on IR.
Matt Breida is also injured.
Matt Breida's coming out of the concussion protocol, I think.
I think ankle.
Oh, he's got an ankle?
Yep.
Okay.
That's what I saw.
So yeah, they are beat up as opposed to the Packers.
So Ed asks, how is the Packers O-line? I don't know if you have a specific thought about the O-line there, Ed, but how are they? I know Matt LaFleur, heading into the bye week, said that he wanted to be very introspective and take a look at what exactly has been causing some of those early false start sorts of penalties before the snap, pre-snap penalties, that's what they call them, right?
Yes, that is what they call them, yes.
So LaFleur thought that was a big glaring issue. I think Hackett has spoken about it. When Brian Balaga was asked about it today in the locker room, he kind of waved it off a little bit. He didn't seem that, it was such a huge deal, but it has accounted for a lot of the penalties that the Packers have committed this season so far. I mean, what can you chalk it up to? LaFleur says focus, but what does that mean?
Well, it's focus. It's how much are they using the hard count, where Rodgers is trying to get guys to jump off sides. Maybe they need to do that less often. I don't know. I think those things go in stages, but it is focus. They need to be on that kind of stuff. So where it's really hurt them is that they've been really bad every time they're in 3rd and long. I mean, they're 3rd and, I think, 8 and beyond. They're converting like 17% of the time. And that's awful, and that's what's leading to where those false starts are leading them, and the delay of games. I think if they're patient, and if they're facing the 1st and 15, they got to stop going for the first down every time. I think they need to get chunks back, and so get 7 yards on first down, and then a 2nd and 8, and you're in a better situation.
You have been an advocate of running the ball on second down, second and long.
Yeah. absolutely. Even third down, if it's 6 or less, and I think it's also a matter of just trying with a mindset of trying to get half the yards back. If you're facing a 1st and 15, just try to get half of them on first down.
All right, so I'm going to try to boil Brian's question down here. He's wondering if the coaches and the GMs, the GM, Brian Gutekunst, think the run defense needs to have any sort of improvement, and not just dealing with what they have, but also looking for outside resources, bringing some guys in at inside linebacker on the defensive line. Is that in the Packers' future? Do they need to go out and look at that? Or is the way that the run defense is right now, is it what it is? Are they always just going to prioritize the pass game over the run game? Or is there more that can be done there?
I think it's up to Patton to figure out how to get it done with the people he's got. He's got the people to play the run. I mean, they don't have the people to be a dominant run defense, but they have a guy in the middle that pretty much requires two blockers every down, and that's Kenny Clark, and everybody else should work off of that. They could sign some big fat guy, off the street and throw him down in there, but it's not gonna. It doesn't fit what they do offensively. Part of being lousy in the run is that they're so good rushing the passer. They get off the ball and they get after the quarterback, and so some of that you have to take, as part of Patton's defense. But on the other hand, they need to he needs to figure out how to stop some of the big holes that have been, popping up.
Paul wants to know who is going to be covering wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders. You could say one of the benefits of this scenario is that they've already seen Sanders with the Broncos,
yes,
and now they get to see him for a second time, which, okay, great. We've already seen him once. The Packers have already seen him once, but the fact of the matter is that, they have to see him again. So do you remember who covered him?
I believe Alexander followed him around. I think this is a situation where they can stay on their own side. I don't think it does take some. It does take you out of your game a little bit to have a guy follow the same receiver. Then all of a sudden you're switching sides and you're trying to figure out who's going to be where. And I think they'd be better off in this situation just playing it straight up, especially with Sanders hurting. I wouldn't change it if I were them. I don't know. That'll be something Patton has to decide.
Sam wants to know, I guess this isn't a question, we always get statements too. Sam says, got to keep Nick Bosa in check for the 49ers. If they can't, he will be in the backfield. Aaron Rodgers said that the biggest difference in the 49ers defense this year from last year, the Packers saw the 49ers last year, is that they have such an improved pass rush, and he is a big part of it. What about their pass rush has been so impressive this season?
Well, the number one thing is that they have numbers. They just were bringing guys right and left. You had D Ford, you had Bosa, you have Armstead, who's a big, tall guy in the middle. Then you had Blair. They were just running guys out there and fresh and getting after passers. Now they're a little beat up, but still, I think the thing you have to do, you're going to have to, Bakhtiari and Balaga are going to have to handle some one-on-ones because you got to secure the middle. You can't let those two guys, Armstead and Jones, and just collapse the pocket on you up the middle. So they're going to have to handle some one-on-one situations.
So Paul thinks that the Packers are going to find a way to win in San Francisco. What are you thinking? I mean, between the injuries on the 49ers side, and there's that, but then there's also the fact that they've had so much success this season.
Yeah.
Where are you standing? Do the injuries impact the way that you view this game at all?
Absolutely. I think they do. I want to see who's available and who isn't. I think injuries are definitely a factor. I also think the 49ers are pretty well tested. They had two really, really hard games against Seattle and Arizona. And I think even if they're injured, they're going to be ready. They've learned how to deal with this, with guys being down. And I expect them to be pretty competitive. I also wonder about the chess match between LaFleur and Robert Saleh, who are their best friends. They know each other inside and out. They know their systems inside and out. I don't know who's going to win that chess match. I'm still kind of pondering that.
Well, if they knew or if we knew, it wouldn't be as much fun of a game, wouldn't
Yeah,
it be?
it will be a real interesting cat and mouse game. You know, it might just turn out that they both just do what they normally do and they forego all the fancy stuff because they figure they can't fool each other. Then it might just be a big, really physical, rock'em sock'em kind of game.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fun one. It's interesting. I feel like going into a lot of these games the last several weeks, the Packers have been the ones with the insanely long injury report, and there's been so many guys we don't know if they're going to play until 90 minutes before the game.
Yeah.
And in this case, the Packers are mostly healthy, and barring anything that we don't know about that might pop up on the injury report today. And the 49ers are the ones that have some real playmakers on that injury list and could be a big difference maker for them on Sunday.
Yeah, it could be. But the one thing about the 49ers, they're less dependent on a star wide receiver than the Packers are. They rely a lot on scheme, and Kyle Shanahan is a master of devising misdirection and play action, and so it doesn't hurt them quite as much. It did hurt them against Seattle. They had some drop passes that really probably cost them the game, but they were still in it right till the end. And if their kicker had kicked a field goal, it would have been a different outcome.
All right, guys. Well, we're sorry we don't have the injury report for you just yet, but hopefully it will be out soon. Make sure you're following us on all of our social media channels because once we have the injury report, we will be putting it out there and you can check it out and you can validate for sure if everything we said earlier and everything that we speculated was in fact correct. It's a little unusual we don't have it yet.
I wouldn't expect anything on there. I mean, they had all 53 guys at practice on Monday. I would suspect they're healthy.
I think so too. Okay, guys, that's going to be it for us here. Make sure you're checking out PackersNews.com for all of your Packers coverage. Come back tomorrow, and then Friday we will be live once again to chat with you guys, give you all the practice updates and any other sorts of updates we hear over from San Francisco, because that's certainly going to be something to watch, and the status of some of their injured players.